welcome back to Awkward Insurance. We are all about trying new things, and today is going to be one of those days. If you haven't checked it out already, jump over to the Outstanding CSR of the Year episode and scope out a trivia game at the end. It was so much fun. And the guest I have with me today is one of the contestants for that trivia game, Miss Tracy Lee Cotton. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're not going to make me sing again, are you?
I'm not going to make you sing, but oh my gosh, if the name that you have isn't one of the most Southern sounding names, please tell me you were like a rodeo star or a barrel racer or something in a past life.
Never. However, when I was doing farm insurance, I showed up at the commodities conference in North Carolina, and one of the commodities is cotton. And when I told them what my name was, they were like, get out. You're not. And they were like, okay, so you're a producer, right? And I went, well, I'm a producer of insurance, not of cotton. I'm here to talk to people about their farm insurance. And they were like, what? You don't even sell cotton? And I'm like, no, I sell insurance.
Insure it.
I insure it. But
I do the next best thing.
The next best thing. And so that name does have a few connotations. When I tell people, spell it just like the fabric, cotton, the fabric of our lives, I've gotten all kinds of good stuff.
Do you use your whole name, Tracy Lee Cotton?
I have, because it sounds like somebody who,
Man, it's butter right off the tongue. I love it.
And I'm all about some butter, let me tell you.
Okay, so let's get back to trying new things. We aren't going to be doing any insurance trivia today, so you're off the hook for that one. But today we're going to go into the mailbag and read a comment that we just received on a past episode. And you guys, I would really love to hear from anyone who is listening. So if you have a comment or an idea, just go ahead and post that somewhere. We'll find it, and you just might be the next topic of discussion. So let's go to a comment really quick. The comment is from Beth Gordon with AFR Insurance out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And Beth says, I listened to your podcast about when you started your position, and it was inspiring. I have received 2 good fortune cookies lately. One said, your hard work will pay off soon. And the other one said, you have only begun to scratch the surface of your potential. She commented that she taped them up to her computer screen for inspiration and called the episode a seed. Oh my gosh, I have like chills going up my spine right now. She is talking about career leaps of faith, and I don't want to give away all the goodies. You're going to have to go check out the episode for yourself. But that is probably the best response to whatever this awkward adventure has even been. Sometimes I get on here and I completely lose focus and get wrapped up in conversations, and I lose sight that I truly just want this podcast to connect with insurance folk like Tracy Lee Cotton and bridge some nuggets of National Alliance education with real world experiences, and hopefully inspire others to really see just how amazing the insurance industry truly is. So Beth, thank you so much for your comment. I am so appreciative that you took time out of your day to drop us a note. And now get back to slaying and work your grind so that fortune cookie is more than just a dessert. But Tracy, in light of that comment, where is the most inconspicuous place you have found inspiration?
The most inconspicuous place that I found inspiration. That's a good one. I know that I am one of those people who post things up on my cubicle, on my computer. I've had an actual full office full of inspirational things at times. But I think that the one thing that I tried to spread amongst some friends not too terribly long ago was I had a pen that I found online, and I ordered it for several of my insurance industry lady friends.
A pen, like a shirt pen?
It's just a little pen, like a jewelry type of thing, but it's literally, it says be, and I'm just going to say effing, you can kind of guess where that goes. Incredible. And it just says to do. It's like it looks like a little bitty teeny tiny list. It says to do, and it says B and then F. Incredible. And
Be fantastically incredible.
Fantastically.
Right?
That's what the F stands for. But I wanted them to have that I wanted to inspire them to be incredible every day. And what we've talked about is where people have worn that pen before. They've like put it in, they don't want to show it to necessarily customers or out facing. They've just tucked it away underneath like a jacket or inside of it. And I just think that that's wonderful. I always keep mine actually just one pinned inside my purse.
So do you live by that motto to be
fantastically incredible? That is my motto. It's Tracy Lee, be fantastically incredible, Cotton. It's a really long though, so I don't usually put those initials anywhere.
That's awesome. So ever since I learned who Miss Tracy Cotton is, I'll try to cut out the middle name every once in a while, but I'm just telling you, it's going to drop. Everything she has done, I could not wait to get her on an episode to talk about the evolution of her career. So Tracy, thank you so much for being on board for me to dissect your career today.
Thanks so much for having me, Dustin. I really appreciate it.
Oh, for sure. So Tracy has been in the industry, and I'm probably going to get it wrong because I got it wrong on the last podcast, but you'll correct me if I'm wrong. So Tracy has been in the industry for 25 years. She is a CIC and CISR and the 2003 North Carolina state winner for the National Alliance's Outstanding CSR of the Year. And for those who don't know, the National Alliance is celebrating the 30th anniversary of Outstanding CSR of the Year. So go check out those episodes run on Awkward Insurance and Nat Alliance now. The deadline for nominees has already closed, but there is always room for you at the table next year. Okay, Tracy, so let's get back to all things Tracy. Tell us a little bit about professional Tracy.
So, do you want me to go back to the beginning? Because I think that, like everybody else, I didn't start out.
So was it the chicken or the egg?
I didn't start doing farm insurance, but I did get into chicken and eggs as time went by. That was really a great time in my life. But I think that I don't know very many people who grew up going, I want to be an insurance agent when I grew up. And so I'm in that category. I didn't grow up in an agency. Like, I do have some good friends that, they are the second or third generation insurance, legacy type of people. I just went to college and I was a psychology major, but that doesn't get you very far in life unless you want to be a psychologist. And I decided,
do I need to turn my camera off? Are you analyzing me right now?
Every time. And the other thing is how much fun do you think it is as an insurance agent to constantly be analyzing your clients and their
Oh my gosh, you with a psychology major, I mean, when clients call you freaking out, you have got it on lockdown, don't you?
Pretty much. And it's I know what category they fall into, and but no, I just I didn't think that that's what I was going to end up doing, and I answered an ad, and that one was one I think it was literally for a class, but once I got into it, I actually started out with the idea that I was going to be an underwriter. I did that. I actually started out as an underwriter. And
right.
I was in this class of people and we were learning about insurance and, we were getting paid to do it because we were all in training and, then they were going to keep the ones that they wanted.
Right. Because who wants to learn about insurance if you're not getting paid for
it? Not getting paid for it. Those of you who have gone out and gone through classes before you even were hired somewhere, I commend you because I do know that I have one friend that did that and I'm like, that's a big leap of faith, but it also tells you what a great
dedication.
Well, she, I think, had an idea.
I mean, that's something to put on a resume. I took an insurance class without an employer commitment.
Without an employer commitment, and she did get hired right away because she's that fantastic and she's done really well. It's just one of those things where I just went ahead and got into that class, and at the end of 30 days, they decided where they were going to put me, and I became an underwriter for North Carolina, and I was in Tennessee. That's where the company was located, and they were a non-standard auto carrier. We wrote non-standard auto in, I think, 11 states. And I could have picked almost any state, but I ended up with North Carolina. And I immediately figured out that the insurance agents in North Carolina acted like they were a really big deal. Like they knew something, like they were really super special. And it wasn't until I became an agent in North Carolina that I
I'm blushing
realized,
a little bit right now because that's how I treated my underwriters too.
well, the crazy thing is they made it seem like it was so difficult in North Carolina to write insurance. And it wasn't until years later when I could compare what other states were about, because I also became a consultant and traveled the country and talked to folks in all different parts of the country. It was pretty unique. It's a little bit different, and they do put you through the ringer when you go to get licensed. Those people, they did know their things, and knowing their stuff was part of how I got to know my stuff. They taught me every day, and one day this insurance agent just had a really good phone voice, and I ended up in North Carolina because of him. And even though I don't recommend two insurance agents together, it's maybe not the best combination for a marriage or other relationships. It was the way that I got to North Carolina and spent many, many years of my career there as an insurance agent in different areas of insurance. So it was good. It was very good. That's where I got started, at least, though, is I just answered an ad and showed up for a class.
Answered an ad and showed up for a class because we were getting paid
Yeah.
to show up for the class. Oh my gosh. So you have been an underwriter and then you were an agent.
Yep.
And I've lost my note here for a second. What came next?
Well, so I started out when I came into North Carolina. First, I was and I was actually spent a good chunk of my career, another decade, more than a decade, in as a CSR, primarily in personal lines. And I can tell you right now, I can remember saying so many times, "Ah, I will never do commercial lines. Never. I'm not going to the dark side. I
The
love my
dark
personal
side.
lines. I love being a personal lines insurance agent. I love being a personal lines CSR because I ended up doing both. And then one day I became a commercial lines CSR. And that's where, you do that transition and you think, oh, it's no big transition until you start realizing what a big transition it is.
Right.
And that was it was major. But I had spent over a decade already in insurance before I got to that and really thought I knew something. And then I got to commercial lines. I was like, oh, there is a lot more out there that I don't know.
Oh, I dabbled in it for a very quick second, trying to learn a little bit of it. I quickly went back to personal lines too. So, I mean, you've been in both, and personal lines has my heart. I really love personal lines. I love connecting personally with people and
Yep.
just getting to know them and more than just their business. When people call, but commercial lines, they want to stick to business. They don't typically talk a ton about their personal lives. But when you've got somebody on the phone who, first of all, gets on your phone and doesn't even say their name and just starts going into, well, Bobby Joe was backing out of the garage and, then a squirrel. And you're just like, well, this is going to be an interesting story. You
Yep.
start to really get to know people. And I love particularly the older folks that I would get to know because they
Yep.
would call and want to know about the kids and ask how your day is going. And then, sometimes you'd say, well, how are you doing? And, you were saying it in jest, but they take it to heart and they go, well, honey, I'm just not feeling very good today. And, you know, you get into these conversations that you start connecting with people. And so I love it so much. But, being in personal lines and commercial lines, do you feel like personal lines is kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the insurance world? We get forgotten a little bit.
Well, speaking of being a redheaded stepchild, because I am one, I
It's
I
just
would often say for our department, because I was able to move up through once I been through the ranks, I ended up at an insurance agency that I was at for most of my career, Morrow Insurance Agency in Hendersonville, North Carolina. And I got to be the team leader in personal lines. Constantly, I was like, y'all treat us like the redheaded stepchild.
yes.
We're
We're an
separated out.
afterthought.
We are an afterthought when it comes time for so many different things, even just the planning within the agency. They were always
Yes.
first to go, okay,
Thank
well,
you.
what kind of numbers are we putting on the board for commercial lines this year with this carrier or that carrier? And then they were like, well, Tracy, what do you think y'all can do? And I'd be like, I think we can do, a good amount too. And it wasn't until I got into commercial lines that I started realizing that unfortunately what happens is it's a numbers game. And that's the short end of the stick that you
Yeah.
see in personal lines is you work so hard and
You
you
got to
and
churn it out,
you
man.
you do so much for your clients and the dollars are just different looking.
Yeah.
But I do know that if you've got an agency that has a strong personal lines department, that it can build into anything you want it to be.
Yes.
And here's the thing is if you lose a couple of them because somebody moves away or something ends up happening and somebody gets married and goes with their husband's policy, they pass away. Those percentage of policies that you lose in personal lines, even though to you is personally you can feel it, the agency isn't going to have that same ding that they do in commercial lines when you lose an account.
Right,
So
right, right.
I think that the quantity can sometimes very much be the quality standard of an agency. It's another leg of the stool, if you will. If you're looking at an agency and you're thinking, okay, let's be balanced. Let's have a really strong commercial lines. Let's have a really strong personal lines and have a really strong benefits department. That's where I see a lot of the agencies that have done very well over the years. It's a little bit more traditional and the non-traditional agencies out there are killing it doing not that, but that was where it was, and there's still a lot to be said for that because it creates cross flow. If everybody's working well together, you've got referrals from personal lines to commercial lines and vice versa. You've got somebody who is going to be more likely to stay if you can get all lines of their insurance all the way down to their motorcycle all the way up to their $1 million business. And
Lady, you
that's
just got a whole sleuth of episodes going on here. We're talking about
sorry.
retention. We're talking about driving business. We're talking about, keeping clients in house so that nobody can steal you. Like if you don't have as strong personal lines to go along with your strong commercial lines, what do you think that personal lines account? Somebody's going to get a hold of that and ask them for their
Exactly.
commercial line. So it's really beneficial to have all of those working together. Well, lady, you got a lot going on. So you and I have talked before. I know a little bit more about your work history, and we are going to dissect all of that like a frog on a high school science table in just a little bit. But first, I want to get to know the non-professional Tracy just a little bit better. So who I gotta say the whole name. Who is Tracy Lee Cotton when she is not at work?
I I may look mild mannered. I know that I've been accused of that a time or two, but deep
You
down,
do
I'm a
not look
daredevil.
mild mannered to me.
I'm a daredevil, and at least that's where I've recently taken on the persona of. I had always enjoyed trying new things and had always really looked for. I was always looking for some sort of little adventure to go on, whether it could be just getting out and learning more about hiking or doing things outdoors. And I decided when I turned 50, which was back in 2019, I decided to do something really to push because I started feeling that pressure of, okay, what am I going to do special for my 50th birthday? And I got friends of mine as well as my own personal list together and created a list of 50 things to do for my 50th birth year. And in a year's time, I tried 50 new things. They were all new things for me for one thing or another. Some things were like I'd hiked before, but I had never hiked Mount LeConte in snow. So I did that and spent the night up on top of the mountain in snow. I had never done that before. But I did belly dancing and I did pole dancing. I also
Like
jumped out of an
belly dancing with
airplane.
the thing that goes around your waist and the little coins that
It
jingle
was just a
jingle.
class. Some of the things I had because I had so many things to do.
I love
And
it.
it was just a trial, and that was the fun thing for me because I have been accused also of getting bored easy, and I could not really get bored with anything because I had so many things to try to get through. It was a class for this, it was just, running out and doing an afternoon of that. It was very short bursts, but it was so much fun. And the best part about it, really, at the end of the day, was that I had friends that had made suggestions, and they were sometimes personally invested in it. I had my friend Julie Brindle from Indianapolis. She has an agency with her and her family there, and she took me stand-up paddling in the bayou in New Orleans while we were there for an Agency Elevate conference. It was an experience beyond just a regular stand-up paddling. That in itself was exciting enough. Me standing on a board and not falling off and getting totally soaked was, exciting, but with an alligator nearby, I mean, just go big. And it was because of somebody who said, you know what, I'm going to make this happen for you. And that was part of the fun is I had a lot of people who got involved and made things happen for me. And it was one wonderful year that I've not forgotten. And last year, of course, kind of fell short, but this year I've already started working on some new projects. And it won't be 50 for 50 again, but it certainly means that I'm just not slowing down in my non-professional life.
I love what you just called it, a 50 for 50. That's awesome.
That was my hashtag. I used it. I have a blog out there that is
Well, now I'm searching for 50 for 50, Tracy Cotton.
and you may have a hard time finding it. It's out there. It's a
I'll
WordPress blog. But it was, and because I detailed each one of the experiences, not necessarily on their own personal blog. Some of them I kind of put together in one blog article might have been about 2 or 3 different things that I did. Because some of them, like I said, they were so fast. For instance, I had to do one of the things was a sensory deprivation tanks where you go and you do the float tank thing where you just float with no light and it's closed up and you're basically in a tank. And I was so bored after the first 20 minutes of relaxing, and I was in there for an hour, that I didn't have a lot to talk about for that particular experience, other than I was glad that I did it. And it was,
And
I'm
now
a little
you know.
claustrophobic, and now I know.
And
I'm not going to probably do that one again, but there was a lot of other things that I can't wait to do again. And stand-up paddling is actually one of them. I've got another trip planned on later on this year here locally around Chattanooga.
oh my gosh, I just lived vicariously through your story just then. I am so boring. I need to step up my game. Actually, I just need to get a game. That's all I need.
Well, and some of the things, were, I mean, I have to admit that some of the things that were suggested, because I had over 100 items suggested, they were things that I didn't really decide to do. I didn't want to play golf. I'm fine with playing putt putt. Give me a windmill. Give me a little bit of fake grass. I'm all cool. But y'all are watching the Masters probably, or by the time you've heard this episode, it'll already be over. But that's just not my speed. And people are like, oh, well, you ought to take up banjo playing. Well, I did actually take a class over a weekend of mountain dulcimer, and mountain dulcimer was wonderful. But I only took it for a weekend, and I didn't make a commitment to do it for life. But that was the fun part of it. It didn't require having to do something for life. It required and some things I did have to train for. I did a sprint triathlon, and that took months of trying to learn how to swim in laps. Seems easy until you actually have to do it and not
they just glide so easily through the water. It just
I wish I looked very much like a hippopotamus, like flailing about at different times. That was my worst. That was the slowest part of my triathlon when I actually did it. I think I was next to last getting out of the pool. I made up for the time a little bit on the bike ride, but you got to know you're going to fail at things too. That's the thing that I think it taught me, was just the idea that I got to fail at things, but I didn't have to. I just could move on to the next thing after that, and that was good because there was definitely some things that I didn't do well at.
So let's dive into our conversation. You guys, this lady is a professional Swiss Army knife, in my opinion. So from our past conversations, I have learned that she has been an underwriter, moved over into a CSR, customer service role, skipped over to being a consultant and shimmied into being a producer, tried her hand at marketing, shared her knowledge as an instructor, and has made a complete circle back to being client-facing as an executive client manager. So let's start at the beginning. Why underwriting? What about that job posting was so appealing for underwriting?
I don't even remember what it was about the actual post. Once I got into the class, it was fascinating to me, all of the different components that go into rating a policy, that go into what an insurance agent actually does to sell a policy.
So, have you ever manually rated a policy?
Oh Lord, yes, I have, and it's because that also shows how old I am. I've also hand typed a couple of policies in my time, and that's way that's prehistoric. So glad that it's in the past now, because that's before faxing even. That's way back there.
It shows how young I am. I tried to manually write a policy once for an older customer that asked me to do it because he didn't believe the rate was what the rate was. So I tried it for funsies, and I would have I would have never made it because it was hard.
Dustin, if you thought that was fun, I should have brought my pro rata wheel out so we could have some fun this afternoon. That would have been great.
I love the pro rata wheel. I love the pro rata wheel. Okay. So I found one of those in my desk drawer on like my first week in insurance. And I thought this had to be some kind of really cool jigsaw puzzle.
It is a puzzle, but it is, and the thing is, it's one of those kind of tools that you go back and you go, I could still use it if I needed to. It is a tool. It is,
or you can jump on the internet.
Yeah, or you can jump on the internet
and use an electronic calculator.
Our management system has one now, and I was like, what? And it even says like it's got a little wheel. It's got a little wheel, and I'm like, oh, y'all are just like trying to make people feel better. And there's other people who are like, I don't know what this pro rata thing is, but
you can't break old habits. You just got to keep it alive.
It is, and it's because it's just paying homage to what it was, because people who are using it now have no idea that it was actually like this plastic thing. It was like a protractor. Who knows what a protractor is anymore either? We don't.
I think that's what made it so appealing to me was I loved using a protractor in high school, but just try not to stab people with that sucker. But so what else about underwriting was so appealing other than not manually rating policies anymore?
One of the things that for me actually probably got me interested in wanting to know more about the agency side was the day in and day out interaction with agents. Learning what it was that they needed in order to be able to serve their client better. And also understanding more about what goes into it, what goes into the selling of a policy, what goes into the servicing of a policy, knowing that people were waiting for results. They were sending things into us by fax. We did have computers, but it was so difficult back then. And yet I could really see how the other side of it looked interesting to me. I loved being agent facing during that year, almost 2 years that I was in underwriting. But I really I think there was the part of me that had always thought that they made it sound like it was something that was really interesting. Even if
the agents made it sound like it was really interesting. So that's when you became a CSR, right?
Right. So then when I came to North Carolina, I came to work for one of the agents that I had as a customer. They were one of our clients that I had underwritten for. Then I went to work for one of them, and I got thrown right into the fire. It didn't take me long at all before I was right there facing the client, and it was a great run, because I was only at that particular agency for a couple of years before I ended up moving over to Morrow, and was at Morrow for a long time. And there's just there's a lot that goes into it that I don't think that I even realized, of course, being on the underwriting side. However, it did, of course, give me that little bit of edge now that when I go to call an underwriter, it's just like if you've ever been a cashier, you tend to be kinder to cashiers. If you've ever had to work in fast food, you tend to be a little bit more patient with somebody who's in fast food. At least I do. I know that I'm a lot more patient with underwriters, although there's still times when I'm just like, you don't think like we think.
and I got this figured out. Go ahead and approve it.
Yeah, I've already gone through and I've done all the hard work for you. I figured out exactly what it is that you need to know in order to say yes.
This is a piece of cake. It can't get any more cakier than this.
Yeah, when you get to commercial lines and you have to really start selling to the underwriters, that's when it starts getting more interesting. That's been real eye-opening for me.
So as I look at the timeline, it seems like a natural progression. As a CSR, we learn consultancy, and as a producer, I would assume that you were able to use your knowledge in underwriting and a CSR and then a consultant to really hone your skills as a producer. Would you say that's fair?
I would absolutely say it was fair. And, I had the added benefit, I thought, going in as a producer that I understood how to rate. I understood the underwriting process. And so when I went to get information from a client, it tended not to be on a napkin.
You knew
It
how to
tended to,
fill out an Accord app. Is that what you're saying?
shh, don't tell anybody because producers will let you think that they don't know how to do that. But I did. I did. And I also did find that sometimes it was just easier for me to go ahead and take care of things myself that I was used to doing instead of, handing it off. And actually for a good bit of the time there, I did my own CSR work as well as being a producer. So I was a hybrid, and that for me worked very well. It was something that I enjoyed. I wrote an article a long time ago for Agency Nation selling for a CSR kind of thing, and I can't remember what the exact title was, but it was really because I knew early on, even as a CSR, that I enjoyed a certain aspect of taking that education beyond just that sounds okay, right? To this is what you're lacking. This is being that risk management type of edge, and really, I mean, to me, still
Yes.
sales is really about risk management.
Oh my gosh. As you were saying that, and like just a flashback of my own career of when you start to make that transition between I've got the quote right and I can hand it across the table confidently to, okay, we're going to do a little bit more than just quote. We're going to have a chit chat about your conversation and you're going to
Yep.
trust me because that's what I'm here for. That transition, I think, is what really started giving me traction and confidence because that's when you're just like, I got this. I can do this all day long. I'm glad you brought it up though, that you as a producer, were doing a little bit of your CSR work. That was going to be one of my questions was it a challenge as a producer to stay on the surface of an account? Because your history as a client advocate through service as a producer, that role is traditionally to focus on driving in the business. And so you're supposed to like stay really high level. Was it really hard for you not to own something when your client would ask for something and be able to hand it off? Or, how did you balance that?
I think that is probably the toughest thing to have to deal with because when I say have to deal with, it's a wonderful thing. That it's a good problem to have. If you are serious about producing, you have to learn how to let go of certain things. And I know that even in my current position, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I know that one of the things that you'll see, especially if a producer really starts, I say starts, but by the time that they are actively getting a book of business together, really looking at new prospects, getting out and selling more and more and more, there is a distance that has to come, and there is a certain level of trust that they need to hand over to an account executive, account manager, CSR, whatever you want to call them, that they need to be able to say, have you talked to so and so? They're going to take such good care of you when I'm not in the office, when you need just something like an ID card, when you need just to find out what's going on with your billing, when you need just to go ahead and get that claim started. I'm here. I'm obviously, we're going to talk each year about your renewal, whatever we're going to be doing, whatever your service plan is for your producers to do with a client. But that handoff, it's a skill. If you don't have somebody who's skilled at handing it off, then the client gets lost in the middle because they're not going to get the same kind of attention that they would. And also sometimes I don't know that it gives the empowerment that's really necessary on the CSR side for them to feel like they can move forward.
Are you in my head? Like, I don't even need to be here questioning you because I literally just wrote that down that when there is a confidence in a handoff between a producer to a CSR or an account manager, that account manager themselves starts to gain confidence and in the assurance that somebody trusts them. And that can start with the producer before it starts with the client, because the client's a little bit trickier. But when a producer has, confidence in you. When I have confidence from one of my producers, it's the best feeling in the world. And I would feel so destroyed if a producer came into my office questioning
Yep.
something that I had done because I felt like I had done something to break the trust. So get out of my head, lady.
No, but it's it right there. And you've just that whole part of that transaction, or whatever you want to call it, transfer of responsibility, if it's not handled correctly, just ends up messing everything up. It messes things up for the client because they don't really know who they're supposed to really talk to. If they see a producer hesitating, if they feel like the producer is not really giving the full trust, and then on the other end, if you've got an account manager that always says, "Well, let me ask him what he thinks first, or let me check and see what he thinks first." If you don't have any thoughts, again with that trust, if the client is supposed to be trusting us as the agency to take care of their account, they really need to feel like when they call us that no matter who they're talking to, from the receptionist all the way to the person who's going to take care of whatever it is they need, that they can trust that we have their best interest at heart. And sometimes we don't have the answers, but we need to sound confident about getting the answer. And if you always make it sound like I don't really have any ideas, or I really don't know, saying, I'm not really sure what the best answer is going to be for this, but let me get back to you on that. That's a confident way of putting something. And then I've heard many, many times the not so confident way of, oh, well, and it's because in some cases they're afraid, and I've seen it. If they think that they're going to go ahead and go out on a limb and do something, and then they're going to end up getting their hand smacked by a producer because the producer didn't like exactly the way it was done, it just doesn't work. It will not
It
work.
destroys the relationship and it destroys your confidence in your own career. And that gets conveyed over to the client. And I mean, that's just three ways to wrong right there.
It's lose, lose,
The
lose.
whole situation. That's a whole nother conversation about how leadership can really use some trust building exercises between producers and their account managers, just people in the office, and build up that confidence level as a team, because then that gets conveyed over to the client, and the client has a whole lot more trust, which I'm just going to say it again. Trust is so hard to come by with clients. And it's so quick. You can lose it so fast. It's not even funny.
It's
I'm not
true.
even gonna laugh about that.
No,
one.
it's not.
So what brought you back to being a client manager?
This opportunity that I found when I was looking, I knew that I was going to be leaving North Carolina. And Dustin, I won't kid, I spent 2 months in turmoil as to what do I want to be when I grow up. I'm at this point in time in my career. What do I want to do? And there was a few openings that would have allowed me to continue producing, but they didn't really feel like the right opportunity. And I really couldn't picture myself in that particular agency as a producer for whatever reason. And then I was also trying to kind of find my way, just was trying to figure out what's going to work. And I literally found this one again. I answered an ad, but this time it was on Indeed, and
it was a legitimate ad.
It was a legitimate ad, and it was on Indeed, and there was a couple of other ones in Chattanooga. I went ahead and applied for more than one just because, I wanted to make sure I had good odds, and I definitely was feeling very confident that I wanted to be in Chattanooga. But the description of this position was like, what? Are you kidding me? This is so crazy. This sounds so fantastic. What they decided to do here was create a position in addition to the account executive and the producer, where we have now, I get to do both. I definitely work with helping the producer market, help them, really work with the client on make sure that, they've got the right coverages. They're going out there with the right proposal. I'm helping them on that end like a marketer would. And
Don't
then,
you love a really pretty proposal that's just nice and puts it? It's like new school supplies when you were a kid.
It's absolutely, and I am a paper person to this day. Still, I mean, I'm very transitioned about most paper, and I will make fun of people who have stacks and stacks and stacks of it out there. When I was a consultant, I went to this agency once. I got to tell you this. just because it made me think of it, and I'll forget it because squirrel. I went into this agency whose symbol they had just changed a new logo, as many agencies have, of a tree. Or imagine that, an insurance agency with a tree as a logo. There's one in every town. But I walked into the agency principal's office, and it is like walking into the principal's office. But I was a consultant, and I walked in, and I was just to give him kind of like the rundown of what I had found over the last 2 days of being in his agency. I walked in, and I could not see the man almost for the number of files that were on his desk. He is back there somewhere behind all this paperwork that was stacked high enough that, and of course, I'm short, but I could still barely see the man. And I just said, "Do you know how many trees you've killed to have the logo of a tree on your insurance agency?" And he's like, "What?" He wasn't understanding. I was trying to make a joke just to kind of lighten up the
The
mood. But
irony
I
was lost.
literally was, and that's, that's, and that was where his agency was. That was indicative of the rest of the way the agency was being managed. And I say all that to say that when you talk about, flip back just a little bit to leadership, is it's top down. It really it has to, in most agencies, is only really going to work if everybody buys into it. And if
Yes.
if the leader is not buying into being paperless, for an example, in this particular case, and that's been some years ago. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't just last week. Although I've seen some probably not too long ago. I I see that that is the issue. And one of the things, of course, has been so wonderful is to come into an agency where I could tell that there was buy-in for this particular position. And the whole creation of this position was, we've got a really high-powered, high-producing, high-energy producer here in the office, my boss, who he absolutely is loved by his clients. And they do love his account executives because he has several account executives that handle his clients because he's got a really big client base. But there's just this disconnect where he needed somebody to duplicate his efforts while he could go out and continue to hunt. And he needed somebody more to, as I call, be the concierge. Now, because of the size of the clients he has, he really needed somebody in house that could kind of manage the process. So I literally, and I don't mean that I manage by any means. I'm not the manager over these account executives, but we work closely with, how are things going with this? How are you doing on this project? What can I do to help? And then it's back up to him of, this is what's going on. This is how things are going. This is what we're looking like for renewal. And he calls me a quarterback, but I really feel more like a referee. And it's been great though, because in between both of those are a lot of accounts that just wanted somebody to talk to them about their coverages, to talk about the expansion of their business, to talk about what's going to happen after this next audit because they're really concerned about it. Stuff that a lot of producers get into. And it's great. It's great when they have the time to do that. But when you have somebody who really doesn't have the time to put into that, these people aren't feeling, I said these people, they're not feeling left out anymore. And yet we're all a big team and they know they're going to get taken care of. And we have the buy-in of all the way to the top of the leadership for this to
Yes.
work. And if it works for me, then we're going to try to duplicate it within the agency with some of the other producers who are also on the same track. It's fantastic. And I've heard of other agencies doing it. This is just the first time I've gotten to be a part of it. And it appealed to anything and everything that I've almost ever done. It's everything that I've ever done, almost to the T. If I could have written my own job description, all the things you loved about what you've done in your career, I would be doing exactly the things that I'm doing right now, today, back at my desk. That's what I'm doing.
So is this the last stop for Tracy Cotton?
Oh, I don't know. I say that, and I don't know that it is. I know that it was a conscious effort when I came from North Carolina. A lot of people expected, and I had some really very strong offers for producing still. And one of the things I had done and was very proud of, but mostly just really loved, just, I won't say it was much of a pride as it was just kind of it was a heart thing, I called myself the farm to fork insurance agent. And I did it for 7 years. I had wanted to pick a niche, and that's the niche that I picked. And it was really everything from farmers all the way through food producers. I had I had wineries and distilleries, and I had bread makers and coffee makers and restaurants, and I had farmers. And that was my jam. In fact, I've got an insurance is my jam T-shirt that I love wearing it to this
You've
day
already
because
got a ton
it's
of logos for your agency going on here.
well, and I did, and that was the thing is everybody's like, "Well, you're just going to keep doing that, right?" And I was like, you know what? I could keep doing that, and it was a wonderful run, and I dove as deep in there as I really wanted to dive, and then I thought, you know what? There's nothing wrong with going on to something else, and that's I think that's the thing that I've also figured out is leaving personal lines didn't mean that I didn't love it. Leaving personal lines didn't mean that I valued it less. And for that matter, being a farm to fork agent, I was dealing so much with both personal and commercial because that's what farm really is a lot of it that I didn't have to give any of that up. It was just pull it right back in. And we do have some clients that my boss actually has quite a few personal lines clients that even though he does not directly deal with most of the time, I get calls on every once in a while and I'm like, "Oh, I know a little bit about that. I've probably forgotten more than I knew, but I definitely enjoy that part as well."
Oh my goodness. Was each role a reinvention of yourself or was it a progression?
Oh, Dustin, that's a tough one. I can definitely see the difference there. And I'd like to say progression because that's really what I think that anybody is capable of progressing within their career. And it really is dependent on what you want to do. A lot of people will spend their entire career, could be at the same desk, could be doing the same thing, even at a different agency because of circumstances. We all know that things happen. We're it's a big, wide, kind of crazy world out there in agencies nowadays. It's hard to stay at the same place forever because of buyouts and things like that. But anybody can do more than they're doing now. And it has to be that you want to learn. It has to be that you want to try something different. If anything, it kind of goes back to the non-professional side of me. You have to be willing to take a chance, to do something you've never done before, and realize that it's going to be okay if you don't do really well right at first at it. That I mean, I wasn't good. I wasn't good for a while at commercial lines. It took me a long time, I think, to really catch on. And then now it feels like I've always done it. And that's the beauty of our industry is that, once you really get working on something and good at something and practice makes perfect, it can progress for anyone. But I like personally the idea that it's reinventing, that I don't just have to stay who I am if that's not who I want to be. If I want to be something different, then I can be something different. And going back to Beth and her fortune cookie, I want you to know that listening to that was so inspiring to me, just thinking back, because I recognize that we all need somebody sometimes to light a fire for us. And,
Yes.
and I have to give a quick shout out. There was a lady I spent a good part of my insurance career as a mentor. We never worked together. That was, how those things happen sometimes. She was a mentor through the National Association of Insurance Women, which became the International Association of Insurance Professionals, IAAP. Billy and I got to spend time in our little group together and we traveled together a lot. But she was a mentor to me because she always said, whatever you're doing, do the best at it. But if you want to do something else, it's not impossible. Look for and she progressed through her career. She did tons of different things through her career. And I give a shout out to her because just a few months ago, she lost her battle with COVID. She did not
Oh,
make it. And it's been crushing for me to think that we lost a little light like that. But look around, and if you've got, somebody that you work with, it's maybe just a few rungs up or just a few years on you, try to find a mentor. That meant a huge thing for me, especially at that point in time in my career, because she believed in me and whatever it was that I said, well, I was kind of thinking about this. She would ask the right questions. She would push me in the right direction. She was constantly being that accountability partner and what a true mentor should be. And I think that she was instrumental in helping me to continue to achieve my dreams.
oh my gosh, Tracy Lee Cotton, my heart is exploding. right now. I'm gonna have to take a second to pull myself together. Thank you so much for joining me again today. You have offered so much insight into what it's like to always look forward and take the next step and have the courage. And whether it's a reinvention or a progression, always be the best version of yourself. I preach that to my kids every day. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're a waitress or a dog walker. Just
Yep.
be the best doggone waitress or dog walker that you can be. You know, if you scoop poop, then by golly, get it all. You know, I just really kind of figured out how Miss Gordon's comment tied into this. I didn't plan it at all. It was just a comment that I had, and I wanted to really try being able to voice somebody's comment on the podcast. And man, did it really just sync up and match with our conversation today. So thank you so much for pouring into this conversation and being open to your career leaps of faith.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for hanging around and listening to another awkward conversation in insurance. Stay tuned for new episodes from Awkward Insurance wherever you listen to your podcasts. And be sure to check out the National Alliance on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or at scic.com. Now go forth and be awkward. Toodles!